Hello everyone and welcome to day 20 of my Christmas card series. I've got another long skinny card for you guys, a nice slimline using the Yeti or Not stamp set from Fawn, as well as the Stitched Mountain border and the Simple Hillside border dies. I did a little bit of prep work, I pre-stamped all the images that I wanted to use using some Neenah cardstock and Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I used the same Neenah paper to cut out my hillsides, and I used Lawn Fawn paper bag to cut out my mountains. I have a card base here cut with some Blue Jay cardstock to 7 by 9.5 for the, and then for this top panel I have it cut to 3.25 by 9. So the first thing we're going to do is get into the coloring. I want to get it all done so we can work on the actual assembly of the card, and when I'm all done we'll come back and finish up together. Now that all the coloring is finished, I use the coordinating dies to cut out all of these sweet little images. Next, I'm just kind of lay out what I've got going on here so I can have a good idea of how I want my scene to go, lining up my stitched hillsides and my mountains so I had to make sure that I have enough cardstock cut, and we're going to get started on the background panel. Now this panel's not seen a whole lot, but I wanted to have something in the background to kind of offset all of that white. So I have some shaded lilac, spun sugar here, and I'm using Bristol smooth paper just to do a little bit of ink blending on the top of my card base. I really like this color combination for a nice wintry sky. And I'm just lining up to make sure that I have enough color blended, a nice combination of both. I wanted it to kind of fade from purple into the pink for like a nice really early morning look. And I wanted to add just a little bit of dimension to the mountains so they weren't so, flat brown color. So I took some brushed corduroy and added just a little bit of color to these mountains with this paper bag cardstock from Lawn Fawn. I really like the neutrals pack that they came out with. Is a nice set of colors to kind of go with the different types of border dies that they have. That's all done. Clean up my work surface. And next we can get into the assembly of the card. Again, just laying things out, making sure I like what I have. And I'm going to get the snow caps all glued down here. This is one of the biggest reasons I got this little mountain border is I love the little snow caps that go on top. It adds such character. And you can, do them in white and add glitter to them. You can add just about anything to them. I really think they're sweet. So I added them here, and anywhere that they overhung on the border where I needed it, I just trimmed it away, and it still had a nice effect. And I'm trying to get as much of the glue out of my Lawn Fawn glue tube as possible. There is still quite a bit of glue in here, so I think I'm going to try to maybe transfer it into a different type of bottle so I can use up all of it so I don't waste any, because I really like this glue. Next, I just needed to trim just a hair off of my border or my background panel so that everything lined up nicely and it didn't have a little bit of ghosting on either side. Now that I like what I've got, I'm going to start attaching everything using some Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. I definitely wanted to use both sizes of the mountains here because I wanted to make sure there was some depth that you could see. The mountains that were closer are a bit smaller than the ones in the back. I really wanted to add that kind of depth into the card so it looks like you're looking kind of up the hill. Get this larger piece put on here so I knew where I needed to stop each of my different layers. And I'm just gluing all of them flat down. I didn't want to add too much dimension to this card because it was going to be so thick with all the different layers of cardstock with the different, hillsides. So I didn't add any dimension to this card other than popping up the sentiment because I knew it was going to be fairly thick to start with. So I'll have to make sure I add extra postage when I send this one in the mail. I hope I'm not boring you guys with all of these slimline cards, but they are just my favorite. I really like them. So here I have all of my images ready to go, and I fiddled around quite a bit with where I wanted the placement. I wanted to make sure that all of the little Yetis had something going on and they weren't just kind of placed in a silly spot. So each of these Yetis is meant to be a representation of each of my children. I have 4 little boys, and they just love going out in the snow and playing around. So these little Yetis are for each of my boys. And again, I fiddled around quite a bit with what I wanted to do, how I wanted it to look. And once I was happy with that, I decided to go in and work on my sentiment. So I still have a piece of the same Blue Jay cardstock that I'm using for my base or my card base, and I'm going to be using the sentiments Have a Really Cool Christmas from the same Yeti or Not stamp set, and I'm going to heat emboss it using my Versamark ink and some Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder. The nice thing about these sentiments strips with Lawn Fawn is that they're square, so they line up really, really nicely. You don't have to worry about them. If you wanted to line them up nice and straight, you just have to line up the stamps, and they're already cut into nice straight squares. And I really like this Blue Jay cardstock. It's super vibrant. And I wanted to pull in that blue from the background back into the front of the card with this sentiment. I like kind of coordinating my card colors so that I'm not having, have nice coordination between all of the colors. That's nice and dry. Brush off that excess anti-static powder. And I'm using this die from MFT, the Blueprint 27, to cut out my little banners. And I didn't end up keeping the little flag ends. I decided to go with a little angle cut on these just to kind of add to the the whimsy to this card. Now I don't have anything attached yet. I am just getting everything placed where I want it, so now I can glue everything down knowing that's where I want to place it. The last thing I wanted to do for the sentiment is I wanted to add a little bit to the bottom to kind of pull it all together. I added Yeti, It's Cold Outside to the bottom using my Versa Fine Onyx Black ink. And I just stamped that straight down using a acrylic block. Next, I'm taking some Doris 3M foam strips and I'm popping up my sentiment. This is the only dimension that I have on this card, like I mentioned earlier. I wanted to make sure it kind of stood out a little bit more against that mountain. And now I can attach all of my little critters and each of their little accessories in the trees. And I'm just using some Tombow Mono multi-glue and gluing them all flat down. Again, I really like these slimline cards. It just feel like, again, I think I mentioned this the last time I made one, but I feel like you have so much more room to create little scenes. Like if you really like to make scene cards and you really like to kind of tell a story with what you're creating, these slimline cards give you such an opportunity to do that. You have so much more space to work with. And again, I hope I'm not boring you all with these. I think they're a really great way to express yourself. And I think you might see one more slimline card for this season. I can't believe we're on day 20 already. We've only got 5 more days to go, and they're going to be coming rapid pace. I apologize that I got a little bit behind, but of course, you know, life catches up with you, and you know, family comes first. So I appreciate all of you sticking around and all of the subscribers. I'm almost to 500. I really cannot believe it. You're all really great, and I appreciate all of the support. Get this last guy glued down here. And my boys did see this card once I finished it, and they really, really liked it. They thought it was really awesome. And they were picking out which one of the Yetis they were. They thought it was great. Next, I just took another piece of white cardstock here and cut it down to fit inside of my card. I wanted to add just a little bit to the inside. I added a stamp of the Yeti and the sentiment, the best is Yeti to come, because there was so much white space there. I didn't think I could fill it up with a greeting. I probably could. I'm a pretty good, storyteller. I like to talk a lot, but I think for this card, just adding something and, adding to that greeting with your own personal sentiment would be great. And now we can attach this front panel. I decided I wanted to use some 3M tape, and I covered the back of this card. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to pop off. Yes, it added some bulk and a little bit of weight to it, but I was completely okay with that because I didn't want it to come off of the card base. And I'll probably, I definitely will add extra postage to this because it is heavier, and I will take it into the post office to mail it instead of sending it through my personal mailbox. Next, I'm going to add some Wink Castella to my little scene here. I added some flecks to the little Yetis because it's frosty out in the forest. Added some glitter to the accessories. And then I went in with my black Sakura glaze pen and added some detail to the little eyes. I really like the way this turned out. It's super cute. And lastly, I decided to add some Lucy's Little Things Snowdrifts. I apologize that I am out of the screen here. Tried to fit as much of this card in there as I could. With it being so long, it was kind of hard to gauge where exactly I was at on my work surface. So I do apologize for that. I just added a few. I did an odd number. It's a little more pleasing to the eye. Just around the sentiment up in the sky, just to add a little something else because it is somewhat plain. And then I went in with my white glaze pen, added just a little bit of detail to the presents and the accessories. And that finishes up the card for today. Thank you guys for coming by. We've only got 5 more days to go. I hope you have a wonderful week. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well as the little notification bell, and I will see you real soon. Bye!